we are back after.
Yes, it's been a long time, and
yes, we had a tech issue, but we got that solved.
Yeah.
But yes.
Did you? Yeah. So basically, what happened is Windows 10 made my 5-year-old second-hand laptop that, yes, I know I was a retard for putting Windows 10 on. It made it unusable, and Brett came to the rescue, for which I'm eternally grateful.
Yes.
And now I have a new laptop. So that's what I'm using for this.
Yes. So yeah, new stream, and we're even got a new look. Now, Sam and I aren't gonna see this at the time we've recorded it, but thanks to my good friend Nigel, better known as Evil Butter of Unusual Subjects, from that interview video I did a couple months back. I got him to design a title card for us. Now, like I said, Sam and I have only seen the rough, so at the time of recording this, you guys will see the finished version when we put this up.
Yeah, and the rough's pretty fucking awesome anyway. Like, I saw the rough and I'm like, this is the rough I've seen, like, professional finished art. I mean, professional, this is professional but like, I've seen finished art done by other professionals that wasn't as good as the rough art.
Yeah. Well,
and yes, he's being paid.
Yes, he is being paid.
Just for any artists who listen to this and go, you better be being paid for it. Because God knows that so many people who doing podcasts or YouTube or whatever try to get free fucking title cards.
Yeah.
It's a dick move. Don't do that. Pay for art.
Yes. Yes, and now, as I was going to say, because I also know Nigel's work firsthand, I can tell you that when the finished product is going to look amazing.
Nice.
The dude is a man of many talents.
Yeah. No, it should be awesome. So, what you been up to?
Oh, well,
since the last one.
Yes, well, what I've been up to, I have been checking out Iron Fist, which I'm so far up to episode 3.
And it's incredibly underwhelming, as everyone says.
Yeah, like I said, it's only the first 3 episodes. I don't think that's enough to really get a good reaction. Get a good impression of it.
I don't know. Normally, 2 or 3 episodes will give you an idea of at least if you're going to like a show.
Well, it may be that I think Iron Fist might be more of a grower than a shower. Some shows are like that.
Well, maybe, but everything I've heard, including from some friends who've watched it and who are big Marvel fans, is that they dropped the ball big time with this one, and it doesn't get better.
Well, we'll see. After that, I'll probably get caught up onto Luke Cage just so I'm ready for the Defenders miniseries.
Right. Yeah.
And also, I caught the April Fool's premiere stream of the new Rick and Morty.
Which I actually didn't even know had happened until just before we started recording.
Yeah.
When Brett told me. Ooh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, let me think.
Listen to anything interesting, read anything interesting, watch anything else other than the new Ghost in the Shell, which will be coming in an episode on that and a few.
Yes, I
went to Ghost
in the Shell. Went to Ghost in the Shell on one of my days off.
Yeah.
Days off, and I'm saving my thoughts for when Sam and I get around to that.
Yeah, I was going to see it earlier in the week, but what was it? Oh, right. I was hanging out with a friend that afternoon who was going to, and then his boss had a heart attack, so he had to work late, so he came over late. And, and then the cinema's doing weird as fuck time for this week. So I'll be seeing it soon, and we'll be doing an episode on that and the original, where we'll talk about them both on their own and then compare them, and it'll be.
I do have one big announcement coming up though, and if you are living in Western Washington, and Testament, thrash metal band from the 80s Bay Area scene, the same scene that spawned Metallica, Megadeth, and Slayer.
They are fucking legendary band.
Yeah, they are going to be doing a show up in Seattle on the 11th of May at the Showcase.
Ooh, very cool.
And I am going to be there with my buddy Shane.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of them, but they are very good. It's more that I'm quite particular with my metal in terms of what I like. But they are fucking good at what they do.
Yes, they are indeed. So
yeah,
that's on my end. How about you, Sam?
Yeah, so I've been reading. Oh fuck, what's it called? Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
Mm-hmm. I gotta know what that is.
Not that far through. It's very good. It's a British sort of alternate history fantasy thing. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's very, very good. And what have I been watching? I've been watching I started watching Toast of London, which I'm most of the way through. What is out so far, which isn't saying that much because it's a British comedy. And so that means all it has so far is very little, which is 3 seasons, 6 episodes apiece.
What is it with you Brits and these short run times?
Hilarious. I don't know, but it's fucking hilarious. And if you need more reason to watch it, because you'll dig it, one of the writers on it was one of the major writers on Father Ted.
Okay, now my interest is seriously piqued. Because I've wanted to see Father Ted, but I can't find it on fucking Netflix.
Yeah. Oh, damn. Father Ted is great, man. And I guess you guys wouldn't have had it, like, on TV all the time. Like, it was on reruns for ages here, even. So I kind of grew up on that show. Same with Dad's Army, which that show had been off the air for decades at that point and was still on repeat. And it's one of the greatest.
There was what I did this to troll Diante and another friend of mine, Chris. Right. Because they are both Gundam fans. I found out that Crunchyroll was going to be streaming Gundam, and so I said, "Hey, Diante, Chris, your favorite Gundam is going to be on Crunchyroll." And so Diante, in response, posts a
the fick off clip, was it?
Yes, the video where Father Ted just gives the finger.
Oh yes, there's a very funny episode in that where everyone thinks Father Ted is a racist and a Nazi because he's taking the piss. Have you seen this clip?
Yes, I know this clip. He puts on a desk. He puts on a lampshade
and does Chinese.
And then it turns out there's some Chinese people outside his window, and oh my god.
I think he does like an ironic Zeke Heil at some point as well, making fun of something, and they see that too. But yeah, he just turns around and there's just this Chinese family just staring at him. And literally in that episode, like, someone comes up to him and goes, "I hear you're a racist now." He's like, "What? No, I'm not." Oh. They're like, it's fucking hilarious.
The old lady's reaction was the funniest because, what was it? She was like, because she's a racist, but she's not racist against Chinese people. She's racist against Greeks.
Yes. Because contrary to what some people may tell you, not all white people get along.
Yeah, just as the English and Irish.
Or like the Slavs and any other Eastern European group.
Particularly
or the Poles and the Germans. Or the Poles and the Germans.
Or the French and everyone else.
Yeah. Or the Italians. And well, I suppose if you ask the Italians about other groups, they'll mostly just bitch about their food. Yeah. But yeah, so I've been watching Toast of London. What else have I been watching? I feel like there's a couple. Oh, Trial and Error, which is wrapping up next week. I think there's only going to be like 12 or 13 episodes. 13, I think, yeah. Because it's a new, well, fairly new NBC sitcom that is fucking hilarious.
Wow.
It's a mockumentary sort of trial whodunit thing. But what's remarkable about it is that in the
if you've seen like Parks and Recreation or The Office, either version, this is kind of what that is.
It's kind of stylistically similar to that, yeah. I think, like, I'll update you when the season ends, but I really think you did the show. But what's impressive about it, it's got a weird airing schedule. It's, back-to-back episodes of each week. But then they slipped in an extra episode this week for next week. But what's impressive is that it has, as a comedy, spoofs, the whole making of a murderer, all that sort of thing. It's created a mystery that actually I'm invested in the outcome of. Like, it's a comedy and I watch it for laughs, but I'm actually invested as to finding out whether this guy killed his wife or not. And I did the characters and I'm really hoping he gets spare season 2. But if there is, they're planning on doing it as a new case each season with the same recurring cast.
That could work really well.
Stuff. Yeah, it's a really, dude, the show, like,
not too many comedies go for the
funny,
serialization.
Yeah, when I say it's funny, I mean it is genuinely fucking hilarious, and not in the way that like some shows they're funny, but like the cast kind of carries it. Like, it's okay written, but the cast carries it. And when you look at the cast of this, it's John Lithgow, it's what's her name from she's in 30 Rock, Sherry Shepherd.
Let me pull it up.
It's a bunch of like people who kind of you might think.
I actually got a better idea. I'll just pull up the cast. That's done.
Yeah, good point. But it's got a cast where that could like conceivably be the case, but it so is not. Like, it's really, the jokes are great. I'm trying to think of one of the great gags from it, but I'm blanking right now.
Okay, here's who I got. We got Nicholas DaGosta.
Yeah, he plays the lead. He's great. So the show, the lead character, he's a New York lawyer, gets called into a small town to do his first murder trial, and that's John Lithgow's character, who's accused of murdering his wife, and who is very eccentric.
Yeah, we also got Jayma Mays.
Jayma Mays, she's great in this. She's the prosecution attorney who's trying to become the local district attorney. So she's pushing for a death penalty like really hard.
We got Stephen Boyer. I think that's
I'm trying to remember the name. I should have. I'm just gonna.
Says his character's name is Dwayne Reed.
Yes. He's fuck, that character's funny. He's the local police or ex-police guy on the case, and he's the guy who he's the redneck guy. References to his brother cousin, who's both his brother and his cousin and shit like that. It does do the crazy southern town thing, but not in a conceited way. It's just a really funny, ridiculous way. Sherry Shepherd is the one that I was thinking of.
Yeah. Also,
she's Krista Rodriguez, who hasn't done much TV work, but I'm a huge fan of hers. She's done mostly theater stuff, like 7 Broadway shows, and she's basically imagine hotter Latina fucking Aubrey Plaza, and you've got what she looks like.
Which is saying something, because Aubrey Plaza's not exactly bad looking, though.
No, but okay, let me I will demonstrate how this is possible. But yeah, this is the show is really, really funny. Here we go. Here is how this is possible. Come on. There we go. Sure. There you go. Anyways, but one of the jokes is so of course the was accused of murdering his wife, and in one of the episodes, Josh's boss from New York comes down to see how he's doing with the case, right? He ends up taking over for a bit and suggests that he plead insanity. And so they're going to the nut house to look around, right?
Alright.
And they come out and John Lithgow asks something about, why are there all these pictures of men killing their wives in that office? To which his daughter Summer, played by Christopher Rodriguez, responds with, those were Rorschach tests, Dad.
Jesus. Jesus. Man! There is not a God angry enough to describe how hard I would hit Krista Rodriguez.
No, same dude. Like, holy fuck. No, she is incredibly attractive. Has more personality than Aubrey Plaza as well, but yeah.
You know, what's funny is that on Parks and Rec, Aubrey Plaza's character hooked up with Chris Pratt's.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, so I've been watching that. It's genuinely like, between that and Toast of London, I have not laughed so hard in quite a while, but especially Trial and Error. I've been watching Fate Zero, which I saw the first half of, and then it got pulled off of Netflix a few years ago, and then I bought it, and then I never got around to watching them.
I'm trying to remember, just so I don't get them mixed up. This is not the one where the dumbass goes, people die when they're killed.
No. This is the prequel to the Fate Stay Night visual novel that Gina Rabucci wrote.
I just like to know, how does a line like that get past anybody?
I don't know, but here's the thing. That first Fate Stay Night anime was based on there are 3 paths in the visual novel, and that is the one that everyone says is the worst, and that's the one that they adapted first.
Oh my god.
They've since done Unlimited Blade Works, which is on Netflix, and which apparently is great. And they're doing the last one, which I think is Hemsfield. They're doing them as 3 movies that are coming out at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. But the original Fate Stay Night anime was also Studio Dean. And the way this stuff is all inflatable. So, much better. Studio Dean do not have a particularly good track record, although in the 80s they did some good stuff. I think they did Maison Ikoku, and some of that stuff. But Studio Dean sort of from the 90s on. Ooh. I think Studio Dean did Elfen Lied, which is a terrible looking show and a terrible show. A manga that is pulpy and ridiculous and not perfect, but is actually decent. I don't know if you've ever read the manga, but it's...
And I didn't see the anime either.
Don't watch the anime. Just don't.
I've heard all the horror stories about it.
Yeah. And I think that's about all I've been watching, I want to say. Well, other than the movies we're talking about today.
Yeah. And
then, of course... been contending with the weather, because for those of you who don't know, New Zealand has there's been 2 cyclones within like 2 weeks that went over Australia and that we got hit with the tail end of.
Oh shit. That's like when a typhoon hits and Washington gets the tail end of it.
They closed down roads for the first one because they thought the river running through the town was going to flood. It didn't. But it did flood the year before last, and they weren't prepared, so it's good that they were prepared.
Yeah, Washington's, we've been on and off with rains.
Yeah, and by flood, I mean the 2015 flood was a once-in-a-100-year flood.
Holy shit.
Dude, so the river runs through the middle of town. The street on either side that runs across it, right?
Yeah.
And I live on the side where it's lower down.
Oh,
so it's lower to the river. So there's the street that runs across it. There's my street, which connects to it, but goes up. So there's an angle, and I'm far enough away from that street, so I'm fine. Oh. Between the main road in and out of town on this side that runs across the river, there's maybe 8 meters or so of bank, right? Of, grass and all that. Mm-hmm. It had flooded up onto the fucking road.
Holy shit.
In that one. And there were houses along that road that were evacuated and that were ruined and shit. So I literally would walk down. I literally walked down one day during this. The day the bridges were closed, because they closed the bridges and everything, didn't it? And I walked down, so after it was flooded, and I'm maybe 20 houses down from that end of it, right? Walk down, and you just see the fucking road covered in water.
Wow.
So it didn't happen this time. It flooded very minorly in a few areas, but like where there weren't stop banks and stuff, it got up onto it, but it didn't get up onto the roads or anything. It didn't do too much damage here. It did flood quite badly in some other parts of New Zealand, but yeah. So I've been continuing with the weather. That's really about it, honestly.
Like I said, we just had rains coming and going, and it's fucking April, so that's to be expected. It'll dry up around, I think, the middle or end of May.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, we're talking about weather. How interesting. Yeah, I used to think, because how there's these jokes about, talking about the weather and people doing all this shit, right, and movies or whatever, and they make fun of it. I used to, when I was younger, I used to think it wasn't something people actually did. But no, it is. Like, literally, people do talk about the weather all the time.
Yup, they do. Yeah, they do.
And it's so much more interesting than people would have you believe.
Especially when you're comparing different weather patterns.
Yeah. So that's, I guess, about it, really.
Yeah. I guess about the only thing I could really tell. There's one other thing I could get out of the way. Just recently wrapped up Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, and
oh yeah.
You know what? I just feel like doing a spoiler, guys. This is the next review for me.
Right.
It's just been I just had too many ideas about too many talking points about this anime that were routed around my head, and I just realized I got to get these out before I forget about them.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. I'd expect the review of that to come out within the month. In fact, I've already started editing it.
Sweet. That's good. That's gonna be cool.
Yep. So let's begin. So on our last episode, Sam and I discussed that we were going to take a look at 3 different westerns, which is the 3:10 to Yuma, the remake with Russell Crowe and Christian Bale, Unforgiven, and the Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Yeah. Now, how this sort of happened was, we were just thinking we should talk about a movie that we've already seen. Mm-hmm. And I was looking through my things and I went, Unforgiven.
And I just jumped at it.
Yeah, and we're like, fuck yes. But then I'm like, we should have a couple other things. Or something else, yeah. And I because it was me, wasn't it, I think, who suggested 3:10 to Yuma as well. Yeah, and then you went,
yeah, you did.
Well, let's do Assassination of Jesse James as well, because neither of us had seen that. And I thought, fuck yes, it'll give me an excuse to see a movie I've been meaning to see for years. And we'll get to that, but this isn't really a compare and contrast thing. We're not doing what are their views on westerns and any of that crap.
Yeah,
they're just 3 movies that are kind of linked that would be cool to talk about. We're going more for an analysis than review, although it is going to be kind of a reviewy thing. But an analytical one.
We're going to have to give like a brief review. Like you guys are going to want to know what we think of them, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, we're reviewing them, but it's an analytical review, discussion sort of thing, rather than a formal review. And we are spoiling them all, and
so basically, at this point, if you haven't seen any of these movies yet, and you don't want anything ruined, you should stop watching, go watch them, and then come back.
Yeah, although I will say this, these are not movies where if you know what happens, they're ruined, right? They're not big reveal. Really, what they're about is the execution, right?
Let me put it this way: going into these blind, you sort of get them more. You kind of get them to experience them more as they were intended to be.
Yeah, but if you get them spoiled, it's not the end of the world. So if you want to, if you're like, maybe I'll listen, and maybe it'll make me want to watch them. It's not the end of the world, but if you don't want them spoiled, don't listen to it. Particularly for Unforgiven, because that movie, when we're not talking about Unforgiven first, but that movie, the third act of that movie, the finale of that movie, is so intensely powerful the first time you see it.
Yes.
And don't know what's happening. But yeah, so we're going sort of in order of how much there is to really sink our teeth into. And so we're starting with 310 to Yuma because it's the most straightforward of them all.
Yeah, I will.
It's a classic Western based on a classic short story that had already been turned into a movie.
I think it was like
back in the day.
I think it was like back in
the 50s.
Late 50s, yeah, late 50s. The original was 1957, and I'm just curious who was in that. 1957 starred Glenn Ford and Van Heflin. Don't know who they are. But
you don't know who Glenn Ford was?
No, I do not.
I'm not sure what he was in, but the name rings a bell.
Okay, when it comes to westerns, though, guys, I got raised up on were. This is because of my dad. It was mainly John Wayne and Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, I didn't get in. I got into westerns on my own. Believe it or not, because it's a genre that you sort of has a reputation for being one that you're brought into by someone else, right? And I kind of went. I'm curious about the genre and. I did the John Wayne thing first. The Shootist was my first Western. God, I love that movie. And then did the Clint Eastwood thing and all that. I'm more of a John Wayne than a Clint Eastwood guy. But, I like them both.
Yeah, so is my dad.
So 310 to Yuma it's the classic story of a group of people all brought together to deal with a bad guy, right?
Here's the plot summary. Outlaw Ben Wade, played by Russell Crowe, terrorizes 1800s Arizona, especially the Southern Railroad, until he is finally captured. Wade must be brought to trial, so Dan Evans, played by Christian Bale, the owner of a drought-stricken ranch, volunteers to escort him to the train. Along the trail, a grudging respect forms between the men, but danger looms at every turn, and the criminal's men are in pursuit.
Yeah, so basically what happens is the movie, it opens with Ben's barn getting burnt by the guy who,
Dan's barn gets burned by the guy who owns let me check.
He owns the river or something.
He owns land that he owns land and Dan's farm just happens to kind of be in that vicinity.
He owns the land that Dan's farm is on, and Dan owes him money because he's not a very successful farmer, and the guys blocked the river so that Dan can't get the water and all of this stuff. Yeah. And it's a really well done opening. It's cool, and then from there you have he goes into town to try and get the sheriff to help him, I want to say. And he runs into Wade's. Sorry, we watched these a while back.
The way I remember the way I remember it happening was Dan is going to try.
Oh no, he's going to try and find his horses because his horses got let out.
Yeah.
And then he happens upon Ben Wade's gang as they are.
They're robbing a Pinkerton carriage.
Yeah, robbing a Pinkerton carriage, which is a fucking great action scene, by the way.
Yeah, very good set piece. It involves a Gatling gun. That's all you need to hear.
Yeah, yeah, and then he runs into men from the sheriff looking for him, or something like that. The details of it, the plot, aren't the most important thing. It's an adventure western where get from point A to point B, do this, that, and the other, right? And that's what it is, and they've got to get him to...
It's really all about all the twists and turns along the way.
Yeah, so they've got to get him to contention, to get him on the train to 310 to Yuma, which is the prison train. Yeah. The train to the prison, right? So that's basically the theme of it. Christian Bale's son, his character, his son escapes, sneaks out of the farm to follow them, and joins the way. There's Alan Tudyk's in it as a doctor, a horse doctor actually, and he really when Christian Bale and Russell Crowe aren't stealing the show, Alan Tudyk is.
Alan Tudyk is a very underrated actor, I would say. Like people do just. It seems like the only guy who knows just how good he is Joss Whedon.
Yeah, and Joss Whedon has his issues as a writer.
No, but say what you want. Joss Whedon does at least surround himself with really good actors.
Yeah, for the most part, for sure. No, I'm not arguing otherwise. I'm just saying. And Ben Foster also steals the show as Wade's right-hand man, who sort of...
Charlie, yeah, he's like this...
Might be in love with him, because there's definitely a lot of sort of homoeroticism between...
He's crazy, but he's loyal to a fault to him. He's just...
Yeah.
He's really...
And it's that sort of loyalty where you can't tell if he's in love with him, or if he just admires him, or if he's just insane, or what, right?
Like I said... But the guy's really good with his 6-shooters, and you just know he's probably the most dangerous character in the whole movie.
He is, because he's unstable. He's nuts. Well, him and Wade are, but Ben Wade has sort of a sort of honor, right? Whereas Charlie doesn't have a code.
No, he doesn't.
Now, sort of. The main thrust of the film is really Dan Evans and Ben Wade, their relationship and how they try to figure each other out, and they have sort of a grudging respect. And that stuff is the best stuff in this movie.
Yeah, very good interplay between Christian Bale and Russell Crowe. The two really play off each other very well.
Yeah. The acting is incredible, and they need to be in more westerns. And the writing for them is great, and they're great characters. The rest of the movie I have some issues with. Should I talk about the problems I have with it first?
Okay, you can get this out of your way.
Yeah, so I want to emphasize that this is a good movie, and I like this movie. But I remember it being this classic, incredible, amazing fucking movie that was great, and I was kind of shocked at how much it wasn't. Which is not to say it's not a very good movie, but it has some pacing issues. It's a bit wonky, particularly in the first half. It's very stop start, and it here and there, it could have done with a bit tighter editing and some stuff like that to me. And there's a few parts where some of the lines feel a little bit flat, and they're a bit clunky. Like, what's the line? When Dan runs into the landlord in town. And the landlords all, they have this big, he's like, oh yeah, and it's really funky to me, that whole whole conversation. Where the guy who owns the land, he's like, railway's coming down, your land's worth more to them than to you, or whatever, something like that. It felt bad, it felt very heavy-handed to me. Ben's son is really, really boring. Yeah. He's not an interesting character. He's not particularly well acted. He's quite bland. William is the son. That's really my main criticisms. Some of the dialogue didn't, in the first half in particular, didn't quite feel right. Some of the pacing is a bit off. But everything with Dan and Ben is great. I don't know. What do you think of those criticisms? Do you agree with any of them? What do you think?
I think 310 to Yuma was well paced for what it was going. It was going at I think it had a pacing that wasn't too fast, wasn't too slow. It was a very comfortable pace.
Yeah, whereas to me it kind of felt like it in the first half alternated a lot between being a little too fast and a little too slow. Or rather, certain scenes felt too fast to mesh with other scenes that felt too slow to mesh with other scenes, right?
As for William,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess so. But as for William, I mean, I can take him or leave him, but I can kind of see why he's there. He's more there for Dan's character arc than anything else. No,
he serves his purpose.
Which it does come with problems, because then that means that William isn't a character in his own right, because I don't know.
That's the issue.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever watched Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
No.
Yeah, well, the captain of that show, Cisco. What made him unique, besides the fact that he was black, was Cisco was also a single father. He had a teenage son named Jake, and the thing was that early on, Jake was more there to define Cisco as a character instead of be a character himself.
Yeah,
but
and that's my problem with
as the show went on, though, Jake developed, but like I said, it's not exactly a one-to-one situation. We got a feature-length movie, so
so that's my issue with William is you can have a character who exists largely to help define another character and have the character be a bit more fleshed out than this. And to me, just every time he was in it until they get to contention. When he gets to contention, it works better, because everything from when they get to contention is incredible. But up until then, every time he's on screen, I am just found myself painfully aware of the fact that he is not his own character. This is a good film, but some of the writing in certain areas, and this is part of it, is a bit too mechanistic, and that you can see the mechanics of what they're going for. With that in particular, and with some bits and pieces. At least that's kind of my feeling, is that some of the more superfluous elements, like really, you're painfully aware of that every time they're there. At least for me.
Yeah, no, I get that. One thing, I don't know if you caught out on this, Sam. I kind of caught that there was some light use of symbolism there, like, because one character trait that Ben has is that he's a bit of an artist. Like, there's always these scenes where Ben is like sketching something. He never holds on to them though, but like there's the first scene, like he sketches a bird and he hangs it on a tree branch, and then another one he's sketching some saloon lady, and then another. But I think the one where you really got to pay attention is where he does this sketch of Dan, but you have to pay attention to what he's sketching on. He's sketching on a page from the Bible, particularly the New Testament.
They're in the hotel at the end, this is when they're in the hotel waiting for the train, and he's pulled out a Bible. And that I thought that was a very interesting. We'll get to that later because I really want to talk about that stuff later on, or rather the stuff later in the movie. I really want to get into that at one point, and that's a very telling moment. So really, everything else about the movie works for me, and really to me, it's a flawed but very good movie that has two great leads. They are great characters in a very good movie, and their relationship is what makes this movie work, and those performances are incredible. And it's just this weird sort of, it's the classic too complicated people who find themselves opposed, sort of begrudgingly end up respecting each other.
They're on different.
Sparring.
Yeah, they're different. It's kind of, they're opposites, but they kind of find they have more in common than they realize.
Yes, and Ben spends a lot of time trying to find out what makes Dan tick. He's very interested with him. So yeah. But overall, it's pretty well. The performances are great. The visuals are great.
I would also say the choreography is extremely excellent.
Yeah. The music's pretty good. All the action scenes are great. Pretty much all the performances are great. The guy who plays William, I feel like I've seen him in other things and he's been better. But again, he's playing someone who is more of a cipher than anything else. Yeah. So it's kind of hard to do a great job with that.
I got his name, Logan Lerman. Let me see if I can pull up what he's done.
Right. What else?
Logan Lerman. Let's see. Let's see if I see anything. Oh shit! He was in Percy Jackson. And he played Percy. Oh shit. Let's see.
Have you read those books? Because those books are actually really good. And
I've heard of them. My stepbrother was big into them. He was also in Fury.
Okay.
And Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did not read Percy Jackson when the books came out. I was well outside its target demographic. My stepbrother was huge into them.
Honestly, they're pretty fun books. But yeah, what was it? Yeah, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of my broad thoughts on the film. We'll get into more depth sort of later, but sum up sort of your broad thoughts.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's high action. Really, what makes this movie are the performances from Christian Bale and Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Those two are all the reason to watch it. They have good chemistry. They're very good characters. They're very well acted. They make the most out of the lines they have.
Yeah, I could not see this movie working with anyone else in those roles.
Yeah. It has good plot twists.
Which actually is something that this movie has in common with the Assassination of Jesse James, where I cannot see that movie working without those two lead performances.
Yeah, we'll get. Wait till we get to that. Though.
But we'll get to that. Yeah. We'll get to that.
There's the choreography though, very excellent.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's some. I like the symbolism that goes into it, even though it's kind of very light. It's not very deep symbolism, but it gives it a little more oomph than it otherwise would have had. And
it's not a particularly smart movie, but
it's not trying to be either.
It's smart enough.
It's not. Well, it's not trying to be either. All right.
No, it's not. And that's something interesting where I was talking to Deante, and I asked him what he thought of it, and he said that he thought it was an all right movie, but he thought that it, and he hadn't seen it in a while. He said that he got the impression that it kind of thought it was smarter than it was. Because I don't think it thinks it's a particularly smart movie.
Yeah. And also,
because it's not.
Also, this one I might be reaching for, but this is just something I picked up on. I kind of felt like there was some light commentary on masculinity.
A very, very little bit, yeah.
Most of it related to Dan's character arc.
Yeah. Dan's character arc is really interesting, and I love that part where he talks about how he was a soldier in the Civil War and he lost his leg, and that scene where he talks about how the government paid him, and he has the line, "They were paying me so they could walk away," and I think that's a great moment in the scene for his character, right? But it's kind of like, they weren't paying me so that I could. They were paying me so that they could go, well, we've done what we can, right?
Yeah.
It's not our fault. Not our fault, right? And I just, yeah.
And also, I
really love that moment.
I mean, it's kind of easy to pick up on because he sort of takes on this job not just to get the money for his farm, but also just to prove to his sons that he's because he's not a good farmer. He's missing a leg. They're always wanting for money. So he's trying to prove himself. And like I said,
he dies in the end.
That's a very
spoilers, but
like I said, that is a very masculine character arc.
Yes, but and including the fact that he dies in the end, because he dies in the end. But he still gets him there. And it's a very interesting sort of ending. But yeah, well, we'll get to that. And unless shall we talk about that stuff at the end?
Yes, we should.
Yeah,
we might as well. Yeah.
Okay, so what happens is a bunch of them die on the way. They go through, or some of them die on the way. They get through various places, and then they finally get to contention. And they lock themselves up, being chased by the gang, by Wade's gang. And so they get there, and they get to a hotel, because they're pretty damn early. And they know these guys are coming, so they get the marshals to come and join them. They're ready to, wait.
And then the gang shows up, and they find on the hotel they're holed up in, and
Charlie offers a ransom.
Yep, he says
kill them.
Yeah, to pretty much all the citizens in contention, saying if you got a gun and you help us and you kill any man that tries to get Ben Wade to the train, we'll
give you this much money for each person.
Yeah.
And so the marshal and his men go,
this ain't working.
Fuck this, we're out.
Yeah,
and they go down and they go outside, and Charlie and the gang shoot them all.
Yeah.
And so at this point, the last people remaining are the railway man, Dan and his son. The railway man is going, look, I can't. And then he sees this, he's like, oh fuck.
And he just says, and he's actually prepared to give Dan what he was going to pay him, saying like, look, you've done all you can. I can't ask you to do any more. Or at this point,
what I find interesting is that character is very well characterized in an interesting way, where like it's very subtle, but at the beginning you kind of think he's very stuck-up kind of prick, right? Yeah. But by the end you realize he's actually a decent guy who's just he's just
doing his job.
He's proud to work for the railway. He's that sort of guy. He's a career railway man who's proud of it and of the part that's playing in the modernization of the West. And he's an interesting character who they do a lot with a little one. Mm-hmm. And so Dan says, he's basically like, no, I'm going to do this. Look after my son, and I'm going to do this. But there's all this dialogue between them and then Wade the whole time where they're kind of trying to figure each other out. Yeah. Or Wade's trying to figure Dan out, and Dan is kind of resistant. But then, this is when the league thing, when they finally talk about that. And Wade's like, I'd get this guy. I'd get one that can tick. And then we get an awesome action sequence.
Yes, it's when they leave. Let me put it this way. It's a climax that does not disappoint.
Yeah. They can't go down because everyone down there is trying to kill them, so they're running across the buildings and jumping from buildings and shit to try and get to the train. It's awesome. And then Wade ends up... Yeah, that's right. No, Wade kind of escapes and tries to strangle Evans. Then, Dan explains why, right? Why he's after it. Sense of honor and all of this. And he gives his son something to remember him. And then Wade's like, I've already been there twice and escaped. Fuck it. I'll help you out. I'll do you a solid.
Yep.
And so they get him on. And then,
and Charlie shoots
Evan. Wade tries to stop him, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
And then Wade gets off, gets his gun given back, and then kills the gang, and then climbs back on, and surrenders his weapon.
Yeah, but as the train's going away, he calls for his horse. So.
Yeah.
And then the movie just ends at that point, kind of leaving you to decide what happens after.
Now, something I found interesting. So, Wade tries to seduce, once successfully, once not successfully, a couple of women. And one of the things he talks about is how he loves green eyes. And there was a woman once who had green eyes. And they were so beautiful. I don't know if you noticed this, but he takes a moment to kill Charlie. He's staring into Charlie's eyes with the gun, and he takes a moment to kill him. And you know what I noticed that I didn't notice before?
Charlie's got
Charlie had green eyes. Yep. And it's like, it was a nice sort of touch where it's kind of like, the movie doesn't really elaborate on what that could mean, or whether it's relevant, or what. But it's a nice little bit to be in there to think about, right? Mm-hmm. I don't really know how important it is, but it's just a nice touch, I thought.
Yeah.
I'm glad you picked up on that too, because I was like, it's interesting, because I none of the commentary or anything I saw about the movie mentions this.
Could just be a coincidence.
It could be, but put together the fact that this guy's his right-hand man, and he's got green eyes, and you go, he's going, can I do this? Who knows? But yeah, it's all that stuff near the end is very well done. At the end is very well done. It's fun. It's smarter. It's better paced. It's brilliantly acted. But in the end, now this is one of those movies, and this is why I suggested we talk about it first. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much there actually is to say about this movie.
Yeah,
I'm kind of out of stuff to say about it.
Yeah, it's not, like I said, it's not a very deep movie, but it's not. No. Then again, it isn't trying to be either.
It's a solid movie with a couple of great characters, with some great dialogue and great moments and great scenes, and is quite a good movie overall, right? And it has one of the great endings in westerns, really. Mm-hmm. And I kind of think that's all it needs to be, really, right? Exactly. The other two movies are much deeper, much more thoughtful, have much more going on to talk about. So we're done with. Is there anything else you want to say about 310 Yuma? Or?
No, not really. That's pretty much it. It's like I said, it's not a deep movie. It is not trying to be a deep movie, and really, you cannot ask for more.
No, you can't. It's a slightly smarter than average, fun adventure-y western. It's kind of all it needs to be.
Yeah.
Can you pause the recording for a moment? I need to pee.
No, that's what. I'll just use this to plug a couple of my friends' stuff. Actually,
I'll be back.
So, while Sam is out, I'm going to be plugging some. Well, I want to say sponsors, but they're not paying for the ad space. I'm just plugging my friends' shit for free. Right. And to start off, I'm going to start off with my friend Jen, and and her little online shop known as Wired Cats Designs. Let me see. Let me pull up the copy she had for me. Okay, yeah, here we go.
Right. Sorry about that, I'm back.
Yeah. Gonna plug Jen's little jewelry shop. Okay, here we go. Here we are. Wired Cats Designs, unique and custom jewelry for anywhere in time and space. Commissions for all occasions are welcome. Crafts too. So visit Wired Cats Designs for high quality, handmade custom jewelry at an affordable price.
Okay. Plugs.
Yep.
Free plugs. Yes. Things that friends do.
Yes, and for the next one, I'm gonna plug Michael Hardy's book, Chris Hellion. You know, a supernatural book about let me see if I get on the Amazon website. Where did he get? Here we are. Here's the link. I should have had these saved beforehand. Lesson learned there. Here, but
edit out all the bits where it's obvious we don't know what we're doing here.
That's that's part of our charm.
I don't do editing. You choose how much is edited.
Come on, us being a work in progress is part of our charm.
Okay. If you say so.
Okay, here we go. In the quiet mining town of Statham, a series of disappearances and murder is occurring in this small town community. The recent victim is a school librarian who was murdered at the elementary school in the middle of the night. Days after a murder, a mysterious little girl named Chris Hellion comes to Statham. Her rebellious attitude has taken the attention of Statham's school math teacher, Lisa Lovenly, when she applies at the school. Unknowing to them that this girl is far more dangerous than she looks, as her red eyes have caught the attention of everyone in the school. Who is this girl? Why is she here? What is the mystery and connection between her and the murders happening in Statham? And to round that off, I'm going to plug my friend Wes. This is podcast Common Ground. Common Ground, where opposing viewpoints meet and we try and find, well, as it implies, common ground.
Ooh, sounds interesting. That book sounded interesting too, actually.
All right. So, yeah.
Not just saying this because Brett's plugging them. Like, genuinely, those sound interesting.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, there are our friends' stuff. Check those out. We'll have I'll put down links in the description when we upload this to YouTube. And we'll move on to our next film, Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven.
Yes, now this I watched the most recently because I watched it after getting the laptop there. And this I've seen the most. I've seen this movie probably 5, 6, maybe even 7 times over the last 5 or 6, 7 years, however long it's been. I've watched this movie a lot.
Yeah, I think what's really
I love it.
This isn't something that is necessary to view the movie with, but I do think it enhances the experience is the context the movie was made in.
Yes, we'll get to that in a moment. I just kind of want to do sort of the broad sort of.
Yes. Now I will pull up the plot synopsis.
No, I'll do a plot summary because I can do this. So the movie begins with, there's a title call, but we'll talk about that in a moment. We'll talk about that after, because it's both it's more relevant to the to characterization than it is to the plot, and the mood. But so it opens in a whorehouse. Guys fucking a whore. Here's a scream. Run into the room, and one of the guys has one of the whores laughed at his small dick, so he cut her face up. Mm-hmm. And so basically what ends up happening is the sheriff, played by Gene Hackman, in one of the all-time greatest fucking movie roles, just movie performances and roles in history.
And it's a shame that he's not acting anymore.
Yeah, it is, but let's just be glad that he's not doing the Robert De Niro.
Yeah, true.
And being in really terrible movies.
Yeah, that's a bit of an upside.
Not that he hasn't been in bad movies, though. But, you know, they were long enough ago that people forget them. But yeah, he ends up saying, because the brothel owner goes, look, I've got a contract with this woman. You know, she's damaged goods, no one's going to want to pay for her. So Gene Hackman makes the guys go and come back in however long it is. He doesn't quite, well, he does say, but I'm not sure. With horses, right? We've got to give horses to the owner of the brothel. The prostitutes, needless to say, don't think this is good enough, or at least the lead prostitute, Strawberry Alice. And so they put together all their money to put together a $1,000 reward for people who will kill them. So I believe it's to come back. I believe they're meant to come back in a year, something like that. It's in Wyoming, and then we go to Clint Eastwood's character, William Money, who's an incredibly unsuccessful pig farmer whose wife has died. And that's the title crawl. This is where it kind of comes into place. Says that, you know, William Money was the son of a bitch who was a murderer and all this, drunk, and married a woman, and her mother wasn't very happy and then she died of natural causes, and then kind of sets the mood that way, right? And it's very effectively done. Very interesting. And then so a young guy calling himself the Schofield Kid, he's a young sort of hotshot or wannabe hotshot, at the shows up to try and recruit Money, having heard about his reputation, to kill the cowboys. And Money goes, nah, not happening. And then a couple of days later he goes, actually, fuck it, I will. And the guy said, if you change your mind, fine. So he does. And then Money recruits his old friend Ned, who's another retired gunfighter who was played by Morgan Freeman. Mm-hmm. And they go to try and find it, and they find him, and they get to the town, and they try to kill the guys, and shit ends up hitting the fan. They do actually succeed. I mean, that's sort of the rough.
Yeah. We could go on further, but there's stuff we still got to talk about.
Well, again, the other thing is, I think most people listening to these are going to have seen the movie.
It's more likely.
Yeah, particularly this one. So this movie, it's based on a script that was written in 78, I believe. The concept dates to like 76. Actually, might have been written originally in 76, I'm not sure. I want to say 78 because I read somewhere there. But it was developed under the titles The Cut Whore Killings and The William Money Killings. And so what happened was Francis Ford Coppola in the early 80s got the rights to it, but couldn't get the funding. It lapsed in 85. Clint Eastwood got it, held on to it for a few years because he wanted to do some other projects and wanted to become old enough to play the lead. And really, it's considered a revisionist Western by most people, but I don't think that's a fair description of it.
Yeah, me, I tend to kind of go with what Eastwood says about the film, and what what Eastwood tends to say about it is that it's a film that sort of demythifies the West.
Yeah, it's sort of a summation of the feelings of a guy who has been in Western for so long and his sort of feelings and thoughts on Westerns, right?
Or at least a guy who's a huge chunk of his career has been defined by the Western.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the film ends up being like. It's not, I wouldn't call it a revisionist film. I would say it's more like something like The Searchers, where it takes the context of the times and the like seriously.
Yeah, it
doesn't romanticize things.
It's more of a drama with the trappings of a Western.
Yeah. Well, no, it's a Western, but it takes it seriously. It's a gritty, although I hate that word, but it's that sort of thing where, again, kind of like The Searchers did, where The Searchers, examined sort of the prejudices and the like of the time and all this sort of thing, and wasn't afraid to have its main character be a total son of a bitch. Jason, I assume you've seen The Searchers, right?
When I was very young, I did.
Okay. So The Searchers is probably the greatest Western ever made.
Really?
But there are some...
most people will say it's either Rio Bravo or The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
No, most people say The Searchers. That's the general consensus has been The Searchers forever. Rio Bravo, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, they're great movies too. I like Rio Bravo more. Rio Bravo would be a cool thing to talk about one day. Rio Bravo is great, but The Searchers is probably the greatest Western of all time, certainly in my opinion. And that movie is decried by some as being racist because its main character is racist against Native Indians, and so they think that means, or American Indians, and so they think that means the movie itself must be. But the movie isn't because the movie doesn't actively criticize him, it just presents him there and trusts you to recognize that he's a flawed guy and kind of a son of a bitch, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But this movie is it's a meditation on the Westerns and on violence of the times, and on sort of people who are left behind by the progress of time. That's kind of what I see it as being.
And I think
in terms of what it's about.
And I think it's also worth noting that it's very appropriate that Clint Eastwood does this when he's an old man.
Yes. It's a much smarter movie than 310 to Yuma. It's also much more understated. It's very minimalist in how it's shot. It's the dialogue, it's stylized for the time, but beyond that, it's quite naturalistic. It's brilliantly acted and performed. The violence in it is incredibly visceral and disturbing, and it has some really chilling moments, not all of which are violent.
The only other movie I can think of that had violence like this was a Jim Jarmusch movie called Dead Man.
Okay, I've not seen that. Sorry, it's getting dark. Close the curtain.
In Dead Man, I don't want to go into it too much because that would get us off topic. But the violence in that was very sparse, but it was also kind of very ugly.
Yeah. So the interesting thing with the violence in this is it's not blood everywhere. It's not that sort of thing. It's punches. It's kicks mostly. It's whippings. There's some bullets and stuff. But the way it's done is all of the scenes with violence. They build the tension and everything so well. And it feels real. You feel it. You feel it when Gene Hackman goes to town on Clint Eastwood's character, right? You feel it when he just starts kicking the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Which does happen. And Gene Hackman's character is one of the most terrifying villains, so to speak, in a movie. The bad guys.
Antagonist.
Yeah, antagonists. And do you know who he based his performance on? Or who he took his performance inspiration from? Daryl Gates, the LA police officer who beat the shit out of Rodney King.
Wow.
Yet that was a lot of his inspiration for the performance. And he just Hackman referred to the scene where Dagger has Ned tortured as my Rodney King scene.
Jesus.
Yeah. So it's quite an interesting place to look to for inspiration, and it's quite it explains a lot about that performance, I think.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, I mean, like, then there's that scene, there's that whole thing with that English guy.
Yeah, English Bob, he's a poser. He claims to be an incredible gunfighter, and he's got a biographer, and he's bullshits him. And he comes into town, and he refuses to give his guns up. Gene Hackman's character arrests him and starts telling the biographer how he's full of shit. And we get a scene, and it's a 3-act movie in a scene almost, where he's talking to him. It's brilliant, and he starts talking about guns and how shooting faster isn't better, because if you pull fast and shoot quick, you're more likely to miss. And he goes, "This is how fast I can punch." Whatever. And he goes, and he pulls out a gun and he gives it to the biographer and goes, "Yeah, see what you can do." He goes, "Well, what if I give it to Bob?" He goes, "Do it." Just gives it to Bob. Where he offers it to Bob. And it's a great moment of acting because you can see the guy playing Bob, whose name I'm check because I know. Richard Harris, there we go, I knew it was a big name. And you see it going through his eyes going, has it got ammo? Has it not got ammo? Is it going to kill me? He goes, no, I'm not doing this. And then we get one of the great moments where Hackman just takes the gun, opens it, because it's a revolver, opens the barrel and just unloads it. And it was loaded. And you see Bob just, just deflate as fuck. And
called his bluff.
And Hackman's character just says, "You were right not to do it, Bob, not to take it, Bob. I would have killed you." As a matter of fact. And it's a brilliant and kind of chilling moment. But yeah, you were going, where were you then? Oh yeah, he beats the shit out of Bob before that. But
yeah.
What were you going to say? Was that what you were going to talk about, how he beats the shit out of Bob?
Yes, well, yeah, I was, but also that scene is very, that last scene is very, it's very much worth talking about, because, like, I'm not really sure, like, what Bob is supposed to represent. Like, maybe he's, like, supposed to represent this kind of Old West folk hero sort of thing, because that's sort of, like, he sort of built this myth around himself, and that was sort of He's the kind of figure who made himself into a folk hero. Yeah, and that's sort of what
via bullshit near the end of the Old West, which didn't happen.
Yeah, that's what happened to a lot of these outlaws, like with Butch Cassidy, Billy the Kid, and Jesse James. It's like whether it was of their own making or it just sort of happened, there was this myth that kind of surrounded these types of personalities. These gangs, and they kind of and they sort of just went along with it. Yeah.
But by the way, have you seen the remake of Unforgiven?
The one that's set in Japan. Yes.
The Japanese remake set in Meiji period Japan with Kim Watanabe as the main character.
God damn, I want to see that.
He's a samurai of a non-regime, not a bandit. I keep forgetting it exists, and every time I remember it exists, I'm like, I have to see this because it sounds interesting.
Scott, I mean, and my friend Chris, though, he said this sort of brings everything kind of full circle, because you have to remember, like, Clint Eastwood's
the Western and Japanese samurai movies fit into each other a lot. They influence each other a lot.
Yeah, because here's the thing, like, Clint Eastwood's, I don't know if this was his first Western, but this was the one that put him on the map, or This one's the one that put him on the map. It was A Fistful of Dollars. And if you don't know this, that film was a remake of an Akira Kurosawa film called Yojimbo.
Yeah, it's Western Yojimbo. It's Yojimbo set in West. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much a shot-for-shot remake. Yeah. It just trades the samurai in feudal Japan for the gunslinger in the Old West.
Yeah, and I've heard that this remake of Unforgiven is very good. I don't think I've ever heard that it's bad.
Yeah, but like I said, I wanted to see it so badly, man.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about it.
I'm having a hard time just tracking it down, though.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those ones that I don't even know if it's. Is it available outside of Japan? Is it licensed in?
I don't know. Like I said, well,
it may be one that torrents will be what you have to. I don't know. I'll have to look into it. But yeah, right. We haven't really summed up what we thought because it's kind of obvious. We've just said, or the brief thing. We love this movie. Well, I do. I assume you love it.
I do too. I mean, like I don't think I love it as much as you do, but I'm willing to say what
top 20 movies for me.
I'm willing to say what it is. The film is a masterpiece.
Yes, it is. It is in the top 20. It is both in my top 20 favorites movie and in the top 20 best movies I've seen list. Yeah. Right.
I want to say is like it's a film that's very emotionally draining, but it's also very satisfying too.
Yeah, it's really easy to watch as well. Despite it being heavy and visceral, it's so compelling. So to me, the scene that sticks with me the most is when after they've killed the
cowboys.
Now Ned goes, I can't do it. And
he quits halfway
I'll take the money. Yeah. And the scene that sticks with me the most is when they've killed everyone and they've got the money. And he's like, you want me to... He's like, I've got to get Ned's share, right? And he finds out that Ned's dead because he got killed via being tortured, right? Mm-hmm. And the prostitute gave them money she's talking about him. And Ned just reaches over to... Schofield kid.
Yeah, Will just...
He's not actually named. He's just known as the Schofield kid.
Yeah, Will just reaches over
and
he takes
takes the bottle of whiskey, and he's in the background. Because the way it's shot is the foreground is the prostitute, angled so she's talking to the Schofield kid. And off to the side is Eastwood's character, right? And despite the camera not being focused on him, he's the focus of this scene. It's very well done. And he just takes a drink. And then, as they're talking, takes more drinks. But that moment when he reaches over, takes the bottle, and takes that first drink is one of the most chilling moments in film to me. Because you've heard what he can do. And you've heard... Him and Ned have talked about they were always drunk when they killed people.
Yeah,
and
this is basic. It's very on the nose, but you know what it means. This is Will briefly going back to what he used to be.
Yes, it's not. It's subtle in that it's not pointed out. It's visually done, but it's clear what it's doing. There is no debate as to what this means. Yeah. It's very well done, and the fact that it's not commented on. The Schofield kid kind of reacts, but doesn't say anything, right? And he, of course, because he's sitting there, he's drinking because he's killed someone for the first time after pretending to kill, right?
And now now he's found out.
He doesn't like it.
I'm not a killer.
And that's where there's the line, I have to look up this line because I have to get it right.
It's a thing to kill a man. Take everything.
No, it's a hell of a thing killing a man. or something like that. Let me look.
Hell of a thing, killing him, and taking everything he's got and everything he ever will have.
Yeah, and there's also but there's also kids line that leads into it. Yeah. It's exchange. It says so much in 4 sentences, 2 from each character. The kid says, it's a bit more than 5 sentences. The kid says, Jesus Christ, it doesn't seem real. Guy ain't gonna never breathe ever again. Now he's dead, and the other one too. All on account of pulling a trigger. And all on account of pulling a trigger is the name given to a documentary on the special features, by the way. Yeah. And then Will responds with, it's a hell of a thing killing a man. You take away all he's got and all he's ever going to have. And then, I guess they had it coming. We all have it coming, kid. It's very much, it's Jesus Christ.
Kind of fatalistic, isn't it?
It is. It's. I don't know. It's one of those lines. There's lines in there that really sit with you, right? And some money goes into town for the speed. He goes into town to kill Ned. Not Ned. Fuck.
He killed Little Bill.
Yeah, Little Bill. For killing Ned. And he goes into the saloon. And basically kills everyone except the biographer, Beauchamp. Okay, right. And it's brutal. And you've got the line, where Little Bill says, "You'd be willing money out of Missouri, killer of women and children?" And Ned's response is, "That's right. I've killed women and children. I've killed just about everything that walks or crawls at one time or another, and I'm here to kill you, Little Bill, for what you did to Ned." It's just like, oh fuck, shit's really hitting the fan. Yeah. And he kills everyone there except Well,
he kills a lot of them.
No, he tells most of them to clear out. Those who do, he doesn't kill. He kills everyone except the prostitutes who are watching and the brothel owner, I think. And the biographer. But Money actually isn't dead. He's faking it so he can kill him. And then you basically have the most chilling, the most chilling dialogue in the movie for me.
Yes.
He just walks up to him with a rifle and he points it at him, and Bill says, "I don't deserve to die like this. I was building a house." And Money just responds with, "Deserve's got nothing to do with it." It's like, fuck. You don't fuck with this character.
No, you don't. I mean, like I said, he's Will Money is one of the all-time great cinematic badasses. Yeah.
This is a film where it's the perfect script for Clint Eastwood. Because it's very sparse, it's very minimalistic. But there's meaning there. There's more to it than meets the eye. You know what I mean?
That definitely makes sense. I mean, come on. I mean, because I've seen the Dollars trilogy, and it was very much. Those were films that had a lot of that had very little dialogue. A lot of That had very little dialogue. A lot of it was done more through action and visuals. It's visual storytelling. Yeah,
and Unforgiven is a mix of both, but Unforgiven is a film that above all says a lot with a little. Yeah. That is to say, it says more with a shot or a line than most films say in entire scenes.
Yeah, but like I said, it kind of makes sense that this would be a movie he would pick up because this is very much the type of movie he cut his teeth on in his youth.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting fact for you. I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you've ever watched the movie and you've really noticed the town, has it ever occurred to you just how it feels like a real town?
Yeah,
more so than most movies.
Yeah, like I said, I get the set.
You know why?
Sets are very well done.
You know why?
Because it is a real town.
They built a real town for this movie. up in Canada, in a prairie in Alberta. The nearest big city was Calgary, which was 60 miles away. For the authenticity, and because so much of the movie was shot on the set, all the buildings were fully functional and not just facades. And no modern cars were allowed on the set.
Wow.
Yeah. We shot it up in Canada.
Which makes sense, because that's where a lot of film...
Dude, he shot it up in Canada because he got a discount.
Yeah, it's cheaper to film up in Canada, and
yeah.
It's kind of the reason why Vancouver is a city that that pretty much acts as a stand-in for every other city.
Canada also has the benefit of having lots of sort of empty land that's very evocative, which in America it's harder to.
Well, that's because to quote Gavin McInnes, "Do you want to know how much of this land is habitable? None of it." That's why we got a whole territory.
And that's the other thing is the Assassination of Jesse James was also shot up in Canada. Yeah. Which I don't know if you knew this.
Did not know that, but there's I did live in Canada for a while. There's still a lot of wilderness, and that's just because there's just so little land that people actually want to live on there.
Yeah, it's all probably technically habitable, but even the Canucks who deal with the freezing cold and shit all the time don't want to.
Yeah.
But it's such a great film.
If you are a Western fan, and especially if you're an Eastwood fan, you owe it to yourself to see this at least once.
Yes, if you haven't seen this movie, this is one of those movies that if you like Clint Eastwood, if you like Westerns, you will finish it and you will immediately go, why the fuck did I not see this sooner? And be mad. Like I did after the next movie we're going to talk about.
Yes. That's...
But we're still talking about this. God, there's so much to talk about this movie, and I've made notes of things, but we've covered much of what I made notes about.
I think a good place to cap off the Unforgiven is that this essentially functions as Eastwood's obituary to the Western.
Yeah, it really is. It's also not a fun movie. It's a great movie. And it's easy to watch, but don't go into it expecting a fun Clint Eastwood Western.
Yeah.
Although, a movie called Unforgiven.
kind of little room for what kind of tone it's going to have.
Yeah. And it's a very bleak yet meditative tone.
Yeah, as I said, and the tone, it stays very consistent throughout all, and there's a little dark humor in it.
Yes, there is. But really what the film is it subverts the myths about the Old West. That's much of what the themes are about, the supposed heroism and all of that. And that's kind of where it gets the idea where people call it a revisionist Western. But I don't know that it revises. I think it just takes seriously the idea of the Western.
Yeah.
It subverts more than it revises, right? It's sort of like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, or actually The Assassination of Jesse James.
Yes.
Where they're subversive of the genre. And actually I'm going to mention The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance again when we get to Jesse James.
Oh,
because it's a relevant movie. Have you seen The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance?
No, but I know of it.
It's one of the all-time great westerns. You should see it. It's fucking John Wayne and James Stewart in a western.
Okay, now I have to wonder how I did not see this, because that sounds like the sort of movie my dad would have had.
Dude, and it also, the main theme of it is the myth of westerns. Yeah. And this movie was made back in
the reason why I think my dad would have had this movie is because it's got John Wayne and James
Stewart. Yeah.
These are two of my dad's favorite actors of all time.
The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. I'm just double checking when it's from.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a great film. John Ford movie. John Wayne James Stewart, 1962, black and white, and your dad's not seen it?
I don't. If he did, I don't remember. Because, like I said, this sounds like the sort of movie my dad would have had.
Okay. Honestly, it's another movie that's in my top 20 movies of all time. It's so good. And it's a movie that has a lot in common with Jesse James. And, I'll be mentioning it later as a sort of reference point for some stuff. Mm-hmm. Although I kind of assumed you'd seen it, so I'm going to probably mention it less than I was planning on, because some of the stuff I was going to say was spoilers for the movie. But there is a famous quote from it that's relevant to Jesse James. But yeah, we should wrap up Unforgiven.
Yes, excellent.
I think
it's a masterpiece. It's meditative. It's dark. It's bleak. It's an obituary. Go fucking see it already.
Yeah, it's a great film, and God, I love it.
So now we wrap up with The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Yeah, well, I say wrap up. I'm going to wrap up talking about the individual movies, because I do want to, at the end, do like a ranking of how much we enjoyed each one.
Well, yeah, but you get what I mean. But yeah,
I get you. I'm just saying, because I forgot to mention this before the podcast, so I thought it'd be a good idea. Yeah, before we started recording, I mean. But yeah,
This is not necessarily something that's necessary to. This is not necessary. You don't need to know any of this to watch the movie, but I do think if you know at least the
broad outlines,
the bullet points of Jesse James's life, I think it does sort of enhance the experience a little bit.
Well, do you want to start with that? Because really, I don't think we need a plot summary for this movie.
Yeah, we don't.
This movie, because it's not about plot.
Yeah.
It's about characterization and theme. And it is Robert Ford.
I mean, come on, you know the plot is in the title. The plot is in the title, people. Yes. You know what it is.
By the way, I want to talk about the title because because the title, it is a title where you look at it and you go, it's kind of ponderous, it's kind of overly long, it's a terrible title. But actually, the more you think about it, it's a great title. Because it sets up expectations that the movie then kind of subverts.
Yeah, it's just not a title that's easy to say in conversation is all.
Yeah, well, really, it's a title that you hear and you go, that's pretentious as fuck. But actually, it's a title that gives you a perspective that you can then decide what you think of that perspective. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, yeah, we'll go through the bullet points of Jesse James' life.
Yes.
I talk so fucking much.
Yes, now, Jesse James was born in Clay County, Missouri, on September 5th, 1847. His father, Robert S. James, farmed commercial hemp and was a Baptist minister before coming to Kentucky, Missouri, After he married, he migrated to Missouri, where he helped found William Jewell College in Liberty. He was prosperous, acquiring 6 slaves and more than 100 acres of farmland. Robert James traveled to California during the gold rush to minister to those searching for gold. He died there when Jesse was 3 years old. After Robert's death, his widow Zerelda remarried twice, first to Benjamin Sims in 1852, and then to Dr. Reuben Samuel, who moved into the James' home. Jesse's mother and Reuben Samuel had 4 children together: Sarah Louisa, John Thomas, Fanny Quantrell, and Archie Peyton Samuel. Zerelda and Reuben Samuel acquired a total of 7 slaves who served mainly as farmhands in tobacco cultivation. So, Jesse had 2 siblings with his birth father, his older brother Frank James and his sister Susan Lavina James. So this is important because there aren't very many details about, and this is me going off a documentary I saw about the life of Jesse James. There aren't very many details about what the nature of the relationship with his stepfather was, but right when the Civil War kicks up, I think we can at least get an idea of what it was like.
Right.
And I want you guys to keep in mind, like it said, his father died when he was only 3 years old. So,
yeah.
So here's where here's the historical context. The approach of the American Civil War loomed large in the James Samuel household. Missouri was a border state sharing characteristics of both North and South, but 75% of the population was Southern. Clay County was in a region of Missouri later dubbed Little Dixie, and it was a center of migration from the Upper South. Farmers raised the same crops and livestock as in the areas they migrated from. They brought slaves with them and purchased more according to their needs. So, you kind of see the kind of culture Jesse grows up in. It's very Southern, and in fact, there are many sources that talk about that his mother, Zerelda, she was not a wallflower. She was a very outspoken woman. Did a lot to instill a sense of Southern pride in her sons and her children. So this is the sort of culture that Jesse James grows up in. He's a proud Southerner, and this James family has slaves, and the slaves are their property. And as far as they are concerned, the North is just coming to take what was rightfully their property. So there's no doubt into which side they go with during the Civil War, which is where we get into where Jesse enters into the Civil War. Now, Jesse never officially joined the Confederate Army, but what happened was he and his Frank went off to join a guerrilla gang that known as the Bushwhackers, that was led by a man known as William T. Anderson, who was also known as Bloody Bill.
Right.
And the thing was, while in the Bushwhackers, Jesse was kind of more or less taken under Bill Anderson's wing. And this is kind of where I think we get an idea of what the relationship with his stepfather was like.
Right.
Because what a lot of people may or may not know is that Jesse James learned everything he knew from Bill Anderson. He learned how to ride, he learned how to shoot, he learned how to kill. Bill Anderson was without a doubt his biggest mentor. And so I think we can assume from that Jesse James, maybe there wasn't any animosity, but it's very likely he was not close with his stepfather.
Yeah, probably.
And so given like how much he took to heart from Bill Anderson, I think it's very likely that he sort of found in Bill Anderson a sort of father figure. And this isn't exactly unknown. Because there's lots of talk about how younger gang members always sort of kind of have this paternal sort of reverence for the older members.
Yes.
Because many of these guys, they grow up in fatherless homes.
It happens a lot, yeah.
Yeah. And Jesse James, like I said, given like how well he took to Bill Anderson's teaching, it's very likely that he was not very close with his stepfather.
Right. Interesting.
Now, of course, we know how the Civil War goes. And this is where the Jesse James we know comes...
Wait, Civil War? Don't you mean the Northern War of Aggression?
Yeah. So the Civil War ends, and it's after this that we really get the Jesse James that history remembers.
Right.
Now, even though the Civil War has officially ended, as far as Jesse's concerned, it hasn't. Because he's seen the North still rolling in with their railroads and their banks. And he's thinking...
Well, he justifies everything. Now, whether he believes it or not, but he justifies everything as being revenge on the Yankees.
Yeah, that's...
Basically.
Yeah, that's basically it. And along with his brother Frank and... What was the name? And a guy called Cole Younger. Called Cole Younger. They form what becomes known as the James Younger gang, and they basically go on a crime spree where they're robbing banks and railroads, which are the symbols of the North's power.
Right. Yeah.
And the thing is, though, even though there's this massive manhunt out for Jesse, the thing is, the people actually kind of like him because in their eyes, he's the guy sticking it to the North, sticking it to the man, saying, "Oh, you think you can come in here and tell us what to do? Well, look at Jesse. Yeah. He's doing what he wants to do. He's He's a true Southerner. Yep. They keep this up for a while, and the downfall comes around. Let's see, around 1876, where the James Younger gang attempts a raid on the First National Bank in Northfield, Minnesota. But after the robbery and manhunt, only Frank and Jesse are alive and free. Right. Later on, they try to form they go try to form another gang. I believe in. They form another gang, which is where Robert Ford enters the picture.
Yeah.
And they stage one last robbery. The gang scatters to the winds, and then, as the manhunt is starting to close in on Jesse, was the 1882, around 1882. While they're hiding out in Jesse's home, he gets up to dust a picture. He has his guns off.
And Ford shoots him.
Yep. Ford shoots him in the back of the head and collects the bounty.
Yeah, and then Ford makes a career out of being the guy who shot him, and he has a theater show with his brother where they reenact it.
Yeah. What's also...
And
there's a couple other details I left out intentionally because that's going to be more relevant as we discuss more of the film in depth, particularly with Jesse's family. But that's basically the life of Jesse James. He grew up in the South, was raised to be a proud Southerner, did some guerrilla warfare in the Civil War under let's face it, a man who was pretty much a psychopath, even in the context of his day, because Bloody Bill was known for mutilating his victims. And after the Civil War ends, he basically goes on and keeps it going by attacking the railroads and the banks, and ends up becoming a folk hero in Missouri.
Right. Now, should we talk about the movie?
Yes, we should.
Yeah, so, broadly speaking, I fucking loved this movie. How about you?
I did too.
I suspect I loved it a bit more than you, and I'm going to tell you why. This was, you know how you watch a movie sometimes, and especially if it's a movie you've been meaning to watch for a while?
Yeah.
And you go, Jesus Christ, why the fuck did I not watch this earlier? It's almost like this movie was made with me in mind.
That was
you. Like, to perfectly fit your sensibilities, and that was me with this movie. And I'm going to guess you didn't have quite as strong a reaction to it.
I loved it just more for its more artistic merits. My sensibilities are a bit different than yours.
Yes. So let me just explain why this movie works for my sensibilities, for those listening. This movie is gorgeous. It is slow and deliberately paced. It is very cerebral. It's a lot of people saying things and meaning, ambiguous meaning to what they're saying in terms of, you can interpret things different ways. There's a lot of things being said with shots and body language, and it's a slow, moody movie that you can kind of sit in and kind of just absorb in the ether kind of thing, right? And that is, I adore that. That's why I love Mamoru Oshii. That's why I love things like that, right?
Dude, you would
where they're moody and you sit in.
I'm also surprised you haven't seen more films by Stanley Kubrick or Alfred Hitchcock.
I've never seen any Hitchcock. I need to. I've seen some Kubrick and I need to see more. But yeah.
Yeah, as far as why the movie looks so good, and that is all down to Roger Deakins, the cinematographer. Let me just...
Yes, now Roger Deakins, I had some stuff I wanted to talk about with that.
Yeah, love it.
Because he, I believe, created. God damn it. Sorry, I just had my computer freeze for a moment.
Yeah, but yeah, guys, let me just list off some of the movies that Deakins has worked on. He has worked on Skyfall. He has worked on No Country for Old Men, The Shawshank Redemption, True Grit, Fargo. Let's see what else.
The Coen Brothers True Grit, not the original. So the shitty remake.
Barton Fink.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, fans of the True Grit remake. I fucking hate that movie.
Yeah. He's worked a lot with the Coen Brothers. Pretty much all their movies. He's also done A Beautiful Mind. Did Jarhead. Did The Village.
Jarhead. Fuck, that's a good movie.
He did The Village.
Have you seen Jarhead?
No, I have not.
Have you seen Jarhead?
No.
No, it's fucking good, man. You should.
Yeah, he also did The Village. He did Sid and Nancy.
Okay. I find it funny. I didn't know that he'd done The Shawshank Redemption.
He also worked on
cinematography.
Holy shit! He also worked on How to Train Your Dragon too.
But the reason I mentioned Shawshank Redemption is literally the only thing I like about that movie is cinematography. And he did it. I'm like, oh, that okay.
But yeah, like I said, Roger Deakins, he worked on both How to Train Your Dragon movies. But yeah, Roger Deakins, he has a very well documented career.
Yeah, and he's done a lot. And this movie, the effort they put in. So, to give you an idea, so there are some scenes where there's a blurred effect around the borders of the frame.
Yeah.
And the way they achieved this was taking old wide-angle lenses and mounting them onto the front of several cameras. And Deakins claims to have pioneered the technique, right? And it vignetted and did a color aberration around the edges, and it was really cool. And they used a lot for transitions and stuff, and the idea was to sort of evoke that old-time camera.
Yeah, and there's also the use of colors and...
yes, well, that's the thing, is they stained the... They did something with the... Not stained. They faded the film somewhat to emphasize the blacks and the light.
Yeah, but yeah, to kind of give this impression of N.C. Wyeth paintings, whom if you're not, let me put it this way, if you're a person who's into art, you should know N.C. Wyeth. He's probably the greatest American artist that ever lived.
Yeah, and then there's some time-lapse sequences that are just astonishing that were done by Steadicam. It's so gorgeous. And the music is amazing. And it knows when to use music and when not to use music.
You know who did the music, Sam?
Nick Cave and someone else.
Nick Cave and Warren Ellis. Not the comic fans, not the Warren Ellis you're thinking of. This is a different guy.
Yeah, no.
But this is a
That's
guy.
right. Nick Cave is in the movie, too.
But yeah, I mean, like, I love Nick Cave. I've been a huge fan of Nick Cave's work, guys.
I've not really listened to him, but I did recognize him when he's in the movie. Near the end, I assume you noticed this, but he's the balladeer at the end who's singing the ballad of Jesse James.
Yeah, that's him.
So yeah, the film is. I'm not even really sure what to classify it as. It is a Western, but it's a very subversive.
It also says it's a biography.
Yeah, but it's a Western, but it's subversive. Again, I wouldn't necessarily call it I don't know. So here's the thing, revisionist Western is a phrase used a lot, and no one seems to really know what it means, so I don't use it because I've never found actually a working definition of it. This movie is Brad Pitt as Jesse James and Casey Affleck as Paul.
By the way, if I can just steal the show for a sec, This film kind of shows the sort of roles that Brad Pitt is best at playing. Like, Brad Pitt is at his best when he's playing a character that's larger than life. Like,
yes,
when he plays Jesse James or Tyler Durden in Fight Club, characters that they're not...
Especially nuanced characters who are larger than life.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, is I watched this movie, and because Brad Pitt is one of those guys who he's kind of more famous for being famous now than for being an actor, you kind of forget just how fucking incredible he is in the right roles. And so I watched this movie and I'm like, oh god, that's right, he's as good as anyone in the right roles. Casey Affleck might have actually given an even better performance, I think.
Yeah, I think Casey Affleck actually got an award for that. Let me pull that up.
He might have. But let's just go through the cast, because this cast is incredible, and it's full of people who you don't see that much these days.
Well, actually, it's got someone they tapped early on before he got real famous. There's Sam Shepard. I know him from. He's been in a lot of things. I know him especially from Tombstone, where he played Virgil Earp. He was also that guy in The Big Lebowski who was the narrator. It has Jeremy Renner before they got him in the Avengers to play Hawkeye.
Yes, he's the main, and Jeremy Renner is amazing in this movie.
Yeah. Also got Sam Rockwell.
Yeah. Well, so the cast: Brad Pitt, Casey Affleck. You got Sam Shepard as Frank James. You got Jeremy Renner as Wood Height. You got Sam Rockwell as Charlie Ford. You got Paul Schneider as Dick Little, and one of them. God, that performance is good.
Yep.
You got Garrett Dillahunt as Evan Miller. Yeah. You got Mary Louise Parker as Jesse James' wife. Yeah. And it's a minor role and she doesn't have much screen time, but when she's in there, she's great. And Mary Louise Parker, why is she not in more things these days? She is fucking great.
Yeah. Also has Zooey Deschanel very early on in her career.
Alison Elliott. Ted Levine, James Carville. James Carville's in it, and it turns out he can act. Michael Parks. You've got some big names in this. Here's the crazy thing. Do you know who they originally were weighing up for Ford as well as Affleck?
Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah. That would have been a disaster.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad Casey Affleck got it. Now, speaking of that, let me pull up the award that Casey Affleck got.
Because say what you like about Casey Affleck.
Here we go. Casey Affleck won Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role.
Yeah. Was that the Oscars?
Yeah. Academy Award.
Yeah, deservedly so. And Brad Pitt, I don't think he even got a nomination for it. And he should have. I could be wrong. But yeah. Casey Affleck, say what you like about him after all these allegations from various women. The dude can act. I have no doubt that he's a terrible person and he probably should never get work again and he should probably be shunned. At least if the numerous allegations are true, but...
might also help Ben if he kind of distances himself from him, at least publicly.
Yeah. But, Casey Affleck can fucking act. Now, again, don't get me wrong, I'm not making excuses for the guy. I'm just saying he's a talented guy. I'm gonna cover my ass here, haven't I?
Man, who would have thought that of the two Affleck brothers, it's the one that got into a spurg off with Sam Harris on Bill Maher is the more tolerable of the two.
Yeah, exactly. God, this movie is good.
Yeah, yes, it is.
But there is something about it where you because it has, it has Zooey Deschanel as a minor role. It has Mary Louise Parker as a minor role. James Carville is in one scene. And when you have people who are that caliber, sort of, or that recognizable in the case of Carvel, as minor wrongs, it gives real gravitas to everything in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen are you familiar with the play Angels in America?
Yeah, I know of it.
Right, well, it's a great play that got turned into an incredible miniseries in the sort of early 2000s by HBO. But you should watch it sometime. In fact, it would be a great one to do an episode on. And Mary Louise Parker is sort of the main female character in that. It follows various characters, but she's the most important female character in that. Fuck, she can act. Also has Al Pacino in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this movie, God. I'd hoped to watch it again before we did this, because there is so much to pass. But I didn't get around to it.
I almost feel like this one goes like one step further than Unforgiven does. Like it sort of takes kind of many of the same themes that Unforgiven that sort of grapples with, but it just goes with much further with them than Unforgiven did.
Yeah. So the movie also, it's got a lot of narration that really sets the mood brilliantly.
Yeah, the guy who does it, Hugh Ross, he reads him very well.
Yeah. Now, people might be wondering why I am sort of steering away from the substance of the movie right now. Why I'm talking about the aesthetic, why I'm talking about the stuff and the characters. And really it's because talking about the themes and ideas of this movie and what it does with that and the characterization is a really daunting prospect because there is so much there. But I think a good place to start is with the tone of it. It's often called an elegiac film. Allegorical film, sorry. Allegorical. Like an elegy in tone. And it is. I would say it is. But an interesting point that I don't fully agree with was Mark Kermode, very respected British critic, who had it as one of his favourites of the year, 2007, said that he didn't think it was allegorical. Now, I don't agree with that, but what I do agree with was what he said next, that it's existential. And I think that is what it is above all else, because it's a film obsessed with death. Right? Mm-hmm. By having the title, The Assassination of Jesse James by a coward Robert Ford, that event looms large in your mind.
Yeah, you know what this film is leading up to. Yeah.
In the film, it's about death, it's about fame, it's about hero worship, it's about the myths of the Old West. Mm-hmm. It's about... God, it's about so much. I feel like those are just the surface things it's about, and that if I watched it again, I would find more things.
Dude, you could write a massive essay on what this movie is about alone. Like,
dude, you could write an essay just on how it handles one of the many themes I've listed off.
Yeah.
The fame thing in particular, where it really has.
Dude, I'm not talking like those 6-pagers you had to turn in back in high school. I'm talking like those essays that get published.
I know. I'm saying like you could easily do 10, 15 pages on what it has to say about fame and hero worship.
Yeah, fame and hero worship, that's something I really want to talk a lot about because...
Yeah, and what's interesting, the way it's done is Robert Ford starts... I'll speak in a moment. I just want to get this thing on it because I think this is the thing to start with because it's the easiest to talk about.
Exactly.
Robert Ford is obsessed with Jesse. And Jesse says at one point, I can't tell if you want to be like me or if you want to be me, if you want to be me, right?
Yes.
And really the movie kind of suggests that it's a mix of both. And there's also something homoerotic about it. because, no, seriously, Casey Affleck, the Ford's obsession with him, the way he talks about him, it's the sort of thing where, you know, it's kind of like a really unhealthy man crush.
Yeah.
Because, like, when there's the narration, so the day before Jesse James died was a Palm Sunday. Mm-hmm. And James and the family go off to church. And it shows you Robert wandering around there. And the narration tells you that, you know, he looks at James's clothes, he does all these things, and he gets into his bed and smells the sheets. You know, stuff like that.
And he also tries to simulate the injury on Jesse's finger.
Yeah. And it's this weird sort of thing that happens where you do get people who become unhealthily obsessed with a celebrity. And it becomes a sort of weird, toxic mix of wanting to be them, wanting to be like them, and wanting them. You know? And kind of being almost in love with them. And that's really what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's very interestingly done. And what's even more interestingly done is the way he becomes disillusioned with it when he realizes that Jesse James is losing and is becoming dangerous. But there's still some of that left. You know what I mean? Because
I know. Like he knows Jesse's not the man he thought he was, but he also can't he can't get the idea out. He can't completely separate the myth from the man.
Yes. Now the title plays into this whole fame thing. Because it takes an act of a man shooting another man and makes it sound like it's this huge thing. And it kind of was, but you know what I mean? In terms of, is it an assassination? But the movie actually kind of has you convinced that it could be considered that. But what's interesting is the movie doesn't convince, at least me, that Ford is a coward. Entirely. And what's interesting is it kind of subverts that, where he goes, he is, but he isn't. He suggests that him and his brother Charlie are incredibly brave for just being around Jesse near the end, because he was so unstable and dangerous. Yeah. You know, he kills someone because he tells him something he doesn't like. He tortures. Tortures a child. You know?
Yeah, that was very much Jesse James's character. He was not, like I said, they sort of the myth that kind of sprung up around him was that he was sort of cast as this Wild West version of Robin Hood.
Which he wasn't.
He was not that at all. He was not.
By the way, just another thing
he was very.
That's where he tries to find out where the guy is. Yeah. Goes to the farm with Little. And I try to find out what the guy is, and there's the kid there, and he just beats the kid. That is a really visceral, disturbing scene. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like, how much impact that scene had on you, but that to me, that was...
It's hard to watch.
It was pretty intense and difficult to watch.
But that's what Jesse James was like. The
guy was brilliant. It's brilliantly done because... it's done very well.
He was a cutthroat, a thief, and a murderer. He wasn't this folk hero that the press and so many others.
Well, that's the interesting thing with the film is it presents multiple sides of him. Yeah. It presents him as an intelligent thinker, and it presents him as a violent thug, and also various colors in between it. And it kind of asks. Yeah. Or it raises the question, but doesn't ever answer it, of which of these is the real him? Yes. Are they all? Is it that he's a violent thug really beneath it all, who has pretensions of being a really smart guy like that? Because when you think about it, when he talks when he and Ford have their talks, or he has his talks with people, it's about bigger things. There's something affected in the way he talks about them and the language he uses. I don't know if you noticed that.
I didn't really...
But I kind of got that vibe.
This is more what I picked up just from the context of the scenes that happened. Because, like I said, because we're just shown all these different sides of Jesse. Like, he's this very he's this very cunning, but also very ruthless criminal. He's also he's a violent and dangerous man. But we see him that he's also a very loving father too. Like, you can there's no doubt that he actually does care about his children.
Oh, of course. The question really is how much of those sides to him are. That one is definitely one that's genuine, but the question is how much of some of the other sides of him are affected because he has this image of himself from the myth.
Yeah, that's sort of.
And that's interesting.
Yeah, that's also the thing because that's what I want to bring up because this myth got crafted around Jesse, he also just decided, you know what, this is what they want to see me as. I might as well play the part.
And the movie shows that he can't keep it up. He starts cracking. And so, and even when he gets up to dust the painting, and both Charlie and Robert both reach for their guns. And then it cuts to Brad Pitt again, to James, and he kind of has this resigned look on his face, right? Mm-hmm. And he kind of, his shoulders slouch a bit, that sort of thing, right? And you can't actually see if it's reflected in the painting, in the image, I don't think. But he kind of there's this sense that he kind of knows what's going to happen. And he almost welcomes it.
If anyone knew what the sound of a gun cocking would sound like, it would be Jesse James.
Yeah, but that's before they cock it. It's when they just reach for it. Yeah. And there's kind of this resigned look on his face where he's like, finally it's going to be over, right? And he says, kind of how I read that. And I thought it was an interesting thing where he's kind of like, part of him's welcoming it, almost. Although not all of him.
Probably. I mean, that would make, like I said, you can't, if you're going to, it's just clear that he can't keep living that fiction anymore.
Yeah. Well, the kind of sense I get from it is part of him welcomes it, part of him is amused at the irony that it's going to be one of the Fords who kills him, because Charlie was in his gang for a long time. And Ford was a close associate for a long time. So it's these two people who are there at the end and stuck it out the longest. Mm-hmm. And one of them is going to kill him. And I feel like part of him is amused at the irony and goes, well, if I've got to go, this will make a better story. The irony of this will make for a great story.
Yeah.
So part of him, I think, is almost been kind of the myth at the same time. And all of this is kind of me just getting it from just the expression and the characterization of it.
Yeah, that's...
There's a great moment, because you have Charlie reach for it, and Charlie points it at him. And then cocks it. And he's holding it, and holding it. And then Ford just goes, bang, pulls it out and shoots it, And then, honestly, it's such a great scene, that scene, because then you have the wife, played by Mary Louise Parker, running in with the children, and she's sewing and everything, and it's great acting from her in that scene, actually. But then it sort of has that, and contrasts that with Robert, who just sits down on the sofa.
Like, he just can't believe what he's done.
And kind of slouches, and he's in shock,
Yeah, like I said, you can see what's going through his mind. Like, holy shit, I just shot James.
I did that. I fucking did that. What the fuck? And then the other thing with the fame is so that's not the ending of the film. There's an epilogue, which is the last 20, 30 minutes of the film.
This is what I'd like to talk about because...
I'll just finish what I'm trying to say about this, because this does play into fame, because there's one particular line I want to talk about for it as it plays into fame. And then I do want to talk more about the epilogue, but I'll do that. I'll let you finish after I talk about this line.
Right.
So it shows how he afterwards became famous for. He reenacted in a theatre with his brother and all of this. And he had all this pretense, but he wasn't happy. And there's this sequence with him and his girlfriend, who I forget who plays her.
Zooey Deschanel.
But she's very beautiful. Oh, Zooey Deschanel, that's right, yeah. Zooey Deschanel, honestly, like, is so much more beautiful in that movie than in any other movie she's ever been in. Is it just me who thinks that?
Might be.
Because I did. But where they're talking, and the narrator sort of says, you know, she was the only one he's honest to. And there's a scene where they're by a lake or a river. I think it's a lake. And they're talking about it. And he says that he did it because he was scared. He says, the crazy thing is, I expected applause when I did it. I expected applause. And there was none. And that, I think, is... It's a really powerful moment for me on an emotional level. Because it tells you so much about him. It's also a very important thematic moment. Because it really plays into that idea of the fame. But because Jesse is famous, he thinks, his thought when he kills him is, this is going to make me famous. Anyway. And I think that's a brilliant line.
Yeah, and that's kind of pretty much Robert Ford's character arc. It's all about him chasing after fame.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much very well foreshadowed in his first scene where he's meet with Frank, and he's talking about how I might be a nobody, but I know I meant for greater things.
Yes, and another thing is, I don't think, despite the title, I don't think the film as a whole damns Robert Ford as being a coward, or just being a coward. I think the film has a lot of sympathy for Robert Ford.
Well, yeah, mate. Well, yeah, like I said, it humanizes all. It has its characters are very human.
Yeah.
But
now it does say that he's a coward, but it says that, but it doesn't say that's him. It's part of him.
That's all he is.
Yes, it's part of him.
Because I think there is definitely a case to be made that what he did was a very cowardly act. I mean, he shot a man while his back was in the head while his back was turned. And
he was afraid, and that's part of why he did it. But he had reason to be afraid.
Well,
you very much get the sense that Jesse would have killed him and Charlie, and that he and Charlie know this.
Yeah, I know that, but it's also in the Old West, shooting a man while his back was turned was not considered honorable.
No, I know. I'm just saying that it says he was a coward. He was afraid. He shot the guy in the back, but he had reason to be afraid.
I know, but the thing is, like, because Robert has spent his entire life idolizing Jesse James.
Because he shoots his hero in the back, he is seen as a coward and only a coward.
Not just that. I mean, like, he's idolized Jesse since he was a kid. And there's that one scene where he lists off, like, all the ways he and Jesse are similar. And you can tell that Robert Ford is the sort of guy,
Dude, can you start that again? Because when it said there's this one scene that the audio froze for me.
Okay, the scene, there's that scene at his, was it Robert's sister's house? Well, they're having that meal with Jesse, Jesse gets him to spill tell all the ways that he and Jesse are similar.
Yeah.
Now
it's
a very telling scene because, like, Robert has been a nobody his entire life, and throwing in with Jesse James, this is his chance to maybe catch some of that fame off of Jesse being out, be like one of the or maybe if you can just live vicariously through him, and then he sees just how. And then he gets to see more of Jesse James, like how much of a dangerous man he is, and how much of a threat he is to him and Charlie.
Yeah.
And while he made...
Because when he and Charlie go off to talk, and then Jesse James goes, did I say... And then Jesse comes up and goes, did I say you guys could go off and talk on your own? Yeah. What the fuck?
Yeah. But yeah, it
was... dude?
Yeah?
Okay, it's just frozen for me again.
Must be internet. Okay, but yeah. Another thing is, like, now But I think Robert kind of on some level clues into the idea that following Jesse is not going to make him famous. So if he can't be famous following Jesse, he'll grab fame by being the man who kills him.
Yeah. What I also find interesting is the way that realizes Jesse, but it's Charlie who begins to act like him. It's Charlie who begins to echo him. Right, when the stage show kind of talks about how Charlie starts to take on the mannerisms of him. But also Charlie, it's just interesting. I don't know about you, but I found the entire epilogue to be sort of deeply moving and quietly tragic.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, like,
it shows how it brought them fame, but it destroyed them. Charlie becomes an alcoholic and he kills himself because of the guilt and because of debt and the like. Robert is killed by someone else because of it and is hated and is guilty for the rest of his life because of it.
Cast as history goes out to remember him as a coward.
Yeah, no, honestly, when it has the voiceover when he's in the bar and there's a whole voiceover about it's a story that he owns about how the guy kills him. And, the guy walks in and he puts the gun in and then it freezes for the voiceover, right? And just all of that whole thing, that voiceover, that whole scene where it has his death, I got really choked up, man. Like, got a little watery-eyed there because it's just, the movie, it at least made me feel that Robert Ford kind of deserved better. And that Jesse James didn't deserve what he had in terms of the fame and the love and all that, right? And it kind of gives us this idea that both are flawed people. But the way history has remembered them is incredibly unfair.
Yeah.
And the differences in how it's remembered.
So I guess if it's revising anything, it's revising history.
Yeah, it's revisionist to the myths. It's not revisionist to the myths of the Westerns in general, but the myths of these two characters. I feel like this is a movie that, for a lot of people, isn't going to have that emotional impact because it's a very cerebral, slow film.
It's not a. I guess it's fair to say it's not a film for everyone, but it's a very artistic movie.
But I feel like a lot of people will like it and really enjoy it, but won't get the same sort of emotional reaction I got out of it. And really, it's a case of me. I'm very good at personalizing and sort of emotionalizing cerebral films and shows and the like. Which is to say, there's a lot of things that some people have accused of being a bit cold that I found profoundly moving. And this would be a movie that's a case of that, right? Yeah. It was deeply moving to me, and a lot of people said, even people who admire it, that's a little cold or distant, and it is. But that doesn't mean it can't be moving. Like, and another example of that would be Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not alone in Blade Runner. Many people find Blade Runner, I've seen things you wouldn't believe, that whole speech.
Yeah, that speech is just...
It's a very powerful scene to me. And I'm not alone, I'm far from alone, but...
It's just more about... It's just the way you react to it kind of says more about you than it does about the film.
Because whether you find the epilogue incredibly emotionally moving or not, whether you find that speech in Blade Runner incredibly moving or not, as long as it's your kind of movie, you're going to agree that it's a great scene or it's a great epilogue sort of ending, right? So it doesn't matter whether it's on an intellectual or emotional level that grabs you. And for me, it's both for this movie. But it's a great movie, and it's not underrated. Some people say it's underrated, it's underappreciated. The critics all gave it really great ratings for the most part, but not that many wider audience people saw it because it got a small
audiences that let it down.
Yeah, and then it got a re-release, and just because it's not for everyone, it's a kind of movie that will sort of forever be underappreciated by most people.
Probably even by most film buffs, because I don't think my brother's a massive film buff, and I don't think even he's seen it.
Yeah. Now, but by the way, I suppose it kind of sounded like I was trying to wrap this up here, probably, but I'm not. There's way more to talk about this movie.
Yeah, there is. But
and I want to talk about the myth, the mythologizing, the way it deals with that. And I want to talk about the man who shot Liberty Valance as a sort of thing related to it. The man who shot Liberty Valance, as the name suggests, about a man who shoots Liberty Valance. Liberty Valance he's a bandit type who terrorizes a town. John Wayne's a local gunslinger, and then Stoddard is the name of the James Stewart character, who is a lawyer who comes and lives in this town. And the movie starts with him going back to the town to John Wayne character's funeral. And it's all a flashback where he's talking to some journalists. And they want to hear about him because he's the man who shot Liberty Valance. And I'm going to have to spoil the movie here, sorry for the line. But in the movie, it turns out that he's not actually the one who killed him. What happens is he takes a shot at him and misses, and John Wayne from an alley actually shoots the guy. But it looks to everyone as if he shoots him. And so when the journalists find this out at the end of the film, they tear up what they've read and say, actually, we're not going to write a piece on the truth. He goes, why not? He says, I've got to find the line. It's a very famous line. And so, but let's just say that this is another film where the title is important for your expectations. Because it is about the man who shot Liberty Valance, but it's not, in two senses, it's about the man who everyone didn't shoot him, and about the man who did shoot him, right? And which is which. And so there's this other thing of truth and myth. And here's the line. And I think you've probably heard this line. So he throws, the guy throws the notes into the fire when he realizes that the reputation of this guy is based on the myth. And he says, this is the West, sir. When the legend becomes fact, print the legend. And it's one of the great lines in film history, which is why I feel like you might have heard it. And I think that's a very applicable line to the Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. Because, and actually it's an interesting film to do a comparison with, because they're both about people who shoot, right? And about the myths around that, and they're both about sort of demystifying a lot of those myths. You should watch The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance sometime.
I probably should.
And I think we should talk about it. And actually, I think it'd be a great opportunity to talk about Jesse James again. But no, this movie, it does something similar. And sorry for spoiling the movie, but you see why I did it, because what doesn't really make sense without it, right?
Yeah, I know.
And it's a film where really the spoilers are simple, but whatever. The film does a similar thing, again, where so much of it is, and I kind of talked about this, but so much of it is about those perceptions that people have of these people. And it's in the title. Robert Ford is the coward. Jesse James is the assassinator. And he's assassinated because he was a man of such great stature. That is why it's an assassination, not just a shooting.
Yeah. Because Jesse James is very much this larger-than-life figure.
And the film questions much of that, and it Yeah, it's great. God, I love it. I love what it does with this stuff. It questions it, and again, I'm kind of talking about how it does it. It's brilliant how it does it, and I just wanted to talk about that parallel within the hand shot with the develops, because it's like it's not something I've seen people talk about, but I think it's there. It's worth mentioning the parallel with one of the great classic westerns, I think. But yeah, this movie, it's gorgeously shot. It has great dialogue. It's smart. The dialogue is smart. The filming is smart. It's brilliant. I love it. I've got a line here from fairly early on in the film that I wrote down because it just stood out as such a great line. And when the James gang are all talking, and there's Little, they're talking to Little about, language, right? Mm-hmm. And one of them, I forget who actually says this, but there's a line, you can hide things in vocabulary. And it's such a great little line. that I love that line. But yeah. What did you think of the pacing?
Like I said, it's slow, but it's very appropriate that a film like this goes slow. It really helps build the atmosphere. It really helps build the tension in the film, because even though you know what's coming, the tension is it's almost oppressive. Like
it is.
It's just like you are just like you're it's like imagine just imagine Trump, Assad, Kim, and Putin in a room together. All of them have got buttons to nuclear warheads.
Yeah.
And he wanted them to push it, and it's just like, do it!
Yeah, you don't realize how tense you are, because there's all these scenes with them in the house where you think, is this going to be the scene where it happens? Is this going to be the scene where it happens? And you don't realize how tense you are until it actually happens. And then, much like Ford, the reaction is kind of, you loosen this tension and you kind of go, oh, it's happened. What now? Yeah, it's just like... My reaction kind of paralleled Ford's there. I don't know if yours did, but mine kind of did.
I don't know. I just like I said, I'm kind of a very passive observer when it comes to films. And it's kind of when and that's sort of why. But I would be lying if I did not say I did. I would be lying if I said I did not feel like some kind of sense of. I kind of felt some kind of sense of relief when it was finally over. Like,
yeah.
But like I said, because I'm a more passive observer. I'm there just watching how it's affecting, I think, Robert.
Yeah. Whereas with me, with a film like this that you can sit in and kind of let wash over you, that's how I watch it. So I kind of almost tune everything else out and kind of try to almost
internalize.
Yeah. I'm kind of sitting in the ether with the movie and letting it wash over me and absorb it and focus on it. And that's what I do with films like this. That's what I do with Oshii films. That's what I do with... And that's how I watch Ghost in the Shell, for example. Right? And that does lead to when I find a film that really grabs me and that I can really get absorbed in, that does mean that I have a very strong emotional reaction with it. And I think about it all.
With me, it's just I'm more impressed by Assassination's artistry.
Right, yeah. So in this way, you're Siskel and I'm Ebert.
Pretty much.
And that I am how the movie makes me feel and the ideas of it are largely what makes it lasting impression, where you're kind of like the artistry and all that.
Yep.
And the how well the story holds up and all that. Right?
I'd say on a technical level.
Yeah, but there are elements for both of us, but yeah. And also another thing that stands out to me is acting. Because I pay very close attention in film and the like to what people do with their voices, with how they move, all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great acting. To me, watching great actors in a scene together is almost like porn, right? So watching those scenes with Brad Pitt and Casey Affleck was just, that was the actor, man.
Like I said, Casey Affleck deserved that Oscar he got.
Yes, he did. And Brad Pitt deserved at least a nomination. But he didn't get one. But yeah, Casey Affleck is a better performance. But that's not saying that, by no means saying that Brad Pitt doesn't give an incredible performance as well. The film used silence very well as well. We used music beautifully, but it also had a lot of moments without music in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that, and it doesn't happen enough in movies. Movies often beat over with music. And Unforgiven did that as well. It had a lot of moments where there wasn't music in that let the scene kind of breathe a bit more. Or alternatively, the silence becomes oppressive.
Yeah, true.
As it does when money goes into the bar, into the saloon, and there's no music. Right? And it makes it
actually just makes that scene a lot more
yes.
visceral.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to, because there's no music, there's no there's no music to break the illusion or anything.
Now I think I could probably hear talking about this movie. How long we've been running? We've been running for quite a while, haven't we?
Yes, we have. Let's see how long. Almost 2.5 hours.
Yeah, so I think we should revisit this movie somewhere down the line, maybe in a year or so or something.
Yes, something where we can talk about it in much more depth.
Yeah, and dedicate just one.
Guys, this is a very meaty film, and in fact, I would encourage all you guys listening, go track down Assassination of Jesse James by the Count Robert Ford, just so you guys can come along on this ride with us.
Honestly, if you're only going to watch one of these three movies, it would be this one, I would say.
Yes. And I would strongly urge you guys, if you can, get this on Blu-ray.
Yeah, it's gorgeous looking. Now, the reason I would say this one over even Unforgiven is not necessarily personal preference, although that partly plays into it, but it's just because there's so much to it, right? And it's so stunning, it's so gorgeous. Unforgiven is a masterpiece, but it's also a more conventional film.
Yes.
Now, you should ideally see all three of these movies. But yeah. So I really think we should do an episode dedicated to this movie somewhere down the line in the year or so.
Yes, and in fact, guys listening, if and when you get around to this, send us your thoughts, what you think about this, so that we can talk about it. Send it to our podcast email, that is yankandkiwi@gmail.com. That is a uppercase Y, uppercase K, everything else is lowercase. yankandkiwi@gmail.com. Yeah,
I was going to mention Twitter, but then Twitter locked us out because it needed us to use a phone number, and both our phone numbers are already used for Twitter accounts.
There's also the Tumblr.
But we've also got the Tumblr, where we post episodes. I'm mostly posting on there. You can always send us questions there, but
yes, also that there will be links. I'll include links to those as well. But yes,
there will be more delay to that, so responses to that, and of course, MP3 versions will be uploaded to SoundCloud. But Rankin, how would you personally put, for personal preference, how would you rank the three movies?
I would go. Well,
least to most.
Yeah, least to most, I would go 3:10 to Yuma, Unforgiven, and Assassination of Jesse James.
Really? I kind of figured you were going to put Unforgiven at the top.
No, I honestly thought, like I said, I'm a guy who's very much impressed by artistry, and as good as Unforgiven is, Assassination of Jesse James is a much more artistic film.
Yeah, Unforgiven is a perfectly executed film that is brilliant and has a lot to say and is visceral and is affecting and is kind of it's relatively conventionally structured and all that. And I don't think this is a bad thing. It's a good thing. The Assassination of Jesse James just has more to it. Yeah. There's more going on. It's perhaps a slightly more flawed film, although I can't think of any significant flaws or anything even close to them. Some people find the pacing sags a bit in the middle. I don't. I would love to see the 3 hour and 4 hour cuts of this movie that exists but have never been released. That would be fascinating to see. I don't know if that'd be better. Apparently there was more of James's personal life in there.
Yes, in fact, like I said, I think it really enhances the experience if you have some prior knowledge of the life of Jesse James. There's an excellent documentary on it that I'll include a link to that as well. You should watch it.
I will give my ranking, although I don't know that I need to, since I think everyone can guess what mine is.
Yes, we can.
13 to Yuma is a distant third, and then Unforgiven, and then The Assassination of Jesse James. But both The Assassination of Jesse James and Unforgiven are top 20 movies. I would put them both in my top 20.
Yes.
Easily.
This is a an Assassination of Jesse James. Like I said, this is a film I want to own on Blu-ray because I just know it'll look so much better on Blu-ray.
It will, bro. It will. There is so much to this movie that I don't know how long we've been talking about this particular movie, but I know that it's the thing we've spent the most time talking about for them.
We've probably spent a good hour on it, probably, or
something. We have to have spent like an hour or maybe a bit more, right? And I feel like we barely scratched the surface. I feel like with a few more rewatches under our belts in a year's time, or so, we could easily do a 2.5 hour, 3 hour episode just on the movie.
Yes,
just on this movie.
Yes, we could. Dude.
Especially with the kind of lengthy talk we do before we get into the actual things. But yeah, I honestly, I think we could talk about so much.
Yes. And I agreed. We could. So. All right.
I'm just repeating myself now.
I think this is a good place to cut off. So, be with us next week when Sam takes on the daunting task of defending the career of John Mayer.
Yes. So what we're going to do to this is I'm going to put together what I think are the most essential John Mayer albums and get Brett to listen to them and see if I can turn them into a fan.
Because to hear Sam tell it, if your entire impression of John Mayer is colored by Your Body is a Wonderland, it is the wrong impression of him.
It doesn't do him justice because that is a terrible fucking song.
Not just his worst song.
Yeah, the problem is I'm trying to decide what are the essential ones, and I'm like all of his fucking studio albums, and he's got 7 of them, are kind of essential in a way.
Well, I mean, if he's got a dozen songs and they're they're not much longer than 5 minutes, that's not too bad. They're not.
I mean, the albums are mostly, I think they're about the 40, 45 minute mark for most of them.
Yeah, that's not hard to knock out.
Yeah, I suppose. Do you want to also take on the 2.5 hour long concert movie / double album, live album that he has that is everyone loves and is full of incredible guitar work?
Might as well.
All right, so I will do the rest then. I will give you the thing. But so what we'll do with that one is we'll go through the albums, or general impressions you love, and then we'll go through the albums, get opinions on them.
This will be one. Yeah, this is gonna be one where if you think Sam talks too much here, Boy, he is going to talk. He's going to have so much to talk about because Sam knows music way better than I do. Like, I'm a guy.
John Mayer is my top 10 artist.
Not just that. I mean, just like, dude, you're a trained you're a musician. I am not. I mean, like, I know good music when I hear it, but I cannot tell you. I can't tell you specifically why it's good. Like, I might say, like, the musicianship is good. The instrumentation is good. The production is good.
Whereas I can go like. So he uses these weird chords and his phrasing is incredible and all this.
Yeah.
But
I can't.
John Mayer, so
I can't do
we'll go through it album by album. Overall, and we'll see if Brett likes them. I've linked you a few John Mayer things that you've enjoyed, but I haven't like that live version of Changing with the epic guitar solo.
Yeah.
And but it'll be interesting to see because you're not really opposed to the idea of coming around with him. You just
I'm not. Like I said, John Mayer's more been a guy I've just been ambivalent to. Like I know.
Yeah. And I can't blame you because if you're knowledgeable with your body as a Wonderland, and the hits. Now I like his hits. Waiting on the Words of Change, no such thing. Those are great songs, for example, or Clarity. But those are the songs that sort of your body as a Wonderland for whatever reason. Is the thing that people think of with him, right? A lot of people. And, the other thing is, we're not going to be talking about him as a person. I don't actually think he's a terrible douche overall, but that just would be too complicated if we added that in. It'll be interesting.
Just going to focus on his music and nothing else.
Yeah. His career from the music standpoint. It's going to be interesting.
All right. So now you guys know what to expect next week. So we will be with you on the next episode of the Yank and Kiwi podcast. Have an awesome night.
Thanks for listening to this.
Have an awesome night, guys.
Really long second episode of a podcast.
Yes. Have an awesome night, guys, and because it's the season, have a happy Easter.
Indeed, and really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you anyone who listened to the whole thing. And again, feel free to email us with criticism, but make sure it's constructive. Feel free to email us with tips and with maybe suggestions of things you might like us to cover. Even those could be cool.
And also, big shout out to my boy Nigel for providing us with the excellent title card.
Yes. Thank you, man. That's more than awesome so far.
All right, so adios.
Bye.